On Wednesday morning, you know what to do. Tune into the podcast just for a few. I'll be your guide with tips for your trade. Business success, that's what we'll create. They call it private practice, a world of its own, where entrepreneurs thrive and dreams are grown. From marketing strategies to financial know-how, I'll share the secrets, come on and take a bow. Welcome to the Private Practice Podcast, where I'll help you thrive and we'll have a blast. Tune in every Wednesday, and you'll soon see your business success. It starts with me.
Welcome to another Wednesday edition. I'm so pleased that you're here. Let me just get myself set up. Okay, today I'm going to answer a question that came up in one of the communities, and it's a really good question because it asks about the ratio of time you should be spending on the practice to time you should be spending in it. And no one ever walked me through this, so I'm going to give you some bite-sized key statistics this morning so that you've got them and you know whether or not you're on the right track and what to do, okay? This is all about your balancing act, working on versus in your allied health private practice, okay? So first off, we need to really understand the importance of managing your time. It doesn't matter what stage of the business you're at. This has to be something that you develop skills around. For those of you who are neurodivergent, for me, it was like I was explaining to my psychologist yesterday that he was saying to me, oh, you have trouble planning, what goes on. And I was telling him, his name's Sam, he's amazing. I was telling him, well, I buy all these Kiki K planners and I love them so much. And I get all my stickers and I get there and I set it all up. And then I have the intention of using it, but I don't. The thing that I use now is I was using an app called Structured. It's free. You can get it on the App Store and Google Play. Well, I don't know if it's on Google Play, but you can definitely get it on the App Store. It's called Structured. And the other thing that I use is Google Calendar. So I use the tasks and the calendar to organize myself. But to be honest, I don't use the tasks that much. I tend to put all my tasks in the calendar as like mini appointments that go for 10 or 15 minutes because that way I get notifications and I work better if I'm getting reminded that I've got to do things. So you're going to find your own way. I was saying to Sam, I just feel like I need a planner that's for squiggly minds. Most planners say, here's point A, there's point B, now break down the steps for how you're going to get there. My brain doesn't work like that. I can do it for other people and I can do it for myself, but I won't implement it because my brain will take me off down rabbit holes. I'm easily distracted. I love to work in flow and all those things. So anywho, managing your time is very, very important. And if you struggle with time management, you need to get on top of that as a priority. You just heard I'm getting support around it now for me too. I feel like perhaps I do have ADD or something. I'm off for an assessment for that in September, just to rule it in or rule it out. But there's definitely something I struggle with when it comes to planning. Now, the second thing that I just want to get clear is the definition of working on the business versus in it, right? So when you're on the couch and you're working with a client, I nearly said confronted by a client. Can see where my head's at this morning. When you're sitting on a couch opposite a client and you're doing the work, that's you working in the business, okay, very broadly and generally speaking. And other things are you working on it. So you doing your website or your marketing or having GP meet and greets or all those kinds of things is you working on the business. And this is a very important distinction to make, because I think a lot of the time when we, get our qualifications and we go and open the doors to our very own private practice, we assume we're going to be solely and wholly on the couch in the business with our clients. And it's kind of a rude awakening when we realize, oh no, there are things that you need to do. You've got to work on it as well. So let's break down the ratios for you. So I've got them in a couple of sections here. The first section is startup and early stage, right? So you're going to be spending about 40% of your time on the business and 60% of your time in it. Your key focuses are going to be delivering therapy. So you'll be doing that roughly 60% of the time. And then the remainder of the time is going to be split up usually into about 3 key areas. And that's going to be setting up your systems, your foundations, your processes, all those things. I mean, they should be in place already before you open the doors, obviously, but there will be some tweaking that needs to be done. That's going to take up about 15%-ish of your time. Then you've got to be marketing every single day or week. That's going to take up another 15% of your time. So that needs to be allocated in your diary. And then, of course, you need to have 10% of your time allocated for planning for the growth of the business, right? Because you're just a fledgling business at the moment in that startup stage. So they're the rough general statistics for, right when you first start your private practice. From there, once things get stabilized and you're kicking on a little bit, you're going to be moving into what's referred to as the growth stage. So the growth stage in private practice looks like a roughly equal split of 50-50. So this is 50% of your time is spent working on the business and in the business, right? So client work 50% of the time. But then we've got new tasks that you're doing that you weren't doing when you're in the initial stage, right? So now you've got different tasks like management tasks, and you're going to have different tasks around things like more strategic planning and hiring and training. So recruiting, onboarding new team members, training them up. You might even have some of that time allocated towards supervising them, all those kinds of things. That's what it looks like when you're in the growth stage. So if you're in the early stage at the moment, you're probably spending 40% working on it, 60% working in it. You are moving into the growth stage where it's going to be more 50-50. Once the business is established, and you don't have to hire people or anything like that, I'm just giving you the general gist of what it looks like. But when the practice has become established, those ratios change again. And usually you will be spending between 60 and 70% of your time working on the business and between 30 and 40% working in it. The time allocation will usually look something like this. You're going to have between 25 and 30% of your time on business development activities. Then you're going to have 20 to 25% of your time dedicated to improving the systems that you put in place when you first started the practice. You're going to have time there for your clinical work. That's probably going to be around 30% of your time. And then you're going to have between 15 and 20% of your time, sometimes more, for allocations for staff management. Now, that could be managing admin, your virtual teams, your subcontractors, your employees, things like that, right? The last stage is when you're scaling. So scaling means like even bigger growth, and the ratio then is like 80 to 90% of your focus is going to be on the business, but you'll only be doing like 10 to 20% clinical work yourself. You'll be spending most of your time focusing on business operations. That'll take, again, it's different from practice to practice, but in my experience, probably 30 to 35% of the time. And then you'll be engaging in new activities like leadership and team development, which is going to take you 25 to 30% of the time. Strategic planning and expansion for the business, 25 to 30% of the time. And your clinical work will usually be be between, say, 10 and 20%, right? You'll do just a smidge of clinical work because you'll want to maintain your currency for APRA if that's who you're governed by. But also, if you're not under APRA, for your membership bodies and things like that, you may have requirements for currency for your clinical work. So you'll be seeing, like, maybe kind of like what I do at the moment, just 2 or 3 clients, not that many counseling clients. There are going to be certain things that can influence the change of these ratios. And as I've said, it's going to be different for each practice. I'm just giving you a general breakdown of ratios based on my 30 years of experience. But some of those factors can include things like your own personal preference for what you want the business to look like, and your career goals, obviously. It's going to look different for different practice sizes. So if you're determined to only ever work as a solo private practice owner, solo practitioner, that's going to be different to if you're somebody who is open to hiring a subcontractor or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And then your business model, again, a solo practice versus a group practice, for example, that is a different set of ratios. Your business model can be influenced to some degree by local market conditions, but not all the time. But I mean, things like competition. And when I say that, I'm saying never be heavily influenced by external circumstances, because you run the business, the buck stops with you. You get to make the choices, you get to make the decisions, and you can attract the clients and the team that you want to your private practice, irrespective really of what's going on out there. I don't think what's going on out there has too much to do. I think you create demand for the services that you have through your messaging. Your messaging is simply a way of letting people know that you've got what they want. Okay. There are some strategies and some transitioning that you can go through between the stages. Sorry. So that would look like things like gradually reducing your clinical hours, like in your annual business plan, which hopefully you've all got. If you don't have one, you need to get your PP 101, because you cannot run a successful private practice without a business plan. I'm sure, again, I'm going to have my polarity responders that say, I never had a plan and I'm successful. That's great for you. But for the rest of us, no, if you want to create success, you need to have, of course, proper systems and processes in place, and having a good, clear business plan is one of those. So a gradual reduction of clinical hours can look like, say you want to drop your one-to-one work by 10% a quarter, and so you're going to do this over your 3-year business plan or something like that. It's going to look like hiring and training new people to come in and take over clinical work. You can do that in a number of ways. It's going to be, as your business goes through each of those stages that I mentioned, each stage requires a new scope of learning, right? You can't grow your business if you only have the knowledge to get it started. You need to get new knowledge, and that new knowledge might be for you something like, how do I hire? How do I recruit? And it's not just slapping an ad up on Indeed. There are processes in our industry that you need to follow if you're going to be able to hire staff, and then you're going to have to learn how to train your staff, or do you want to outsource that, and things like that. There's going to be new systems and processes that you're going to have to implement in the practice that will support things like effectiveness and efficiency, because now it's not just you. Now you're going to be asking other people that are working with you to do things the way you want it done. But if you don't have an operations manual, how are they going to do that? And that's going to take up more of your time, because you will then be required to go and monitor things and change things and, monitor activities and all of that sort of stuff. Much better if you've got standardized processes in place. Plus, you'll also be needing to do regular business performance reviews for yourself, for the business, for the team, for individuals that work for your practice, all those kinds of things. And there are some things that I want to share with you so that you can avoid them, because this has happened to other women in private practice that have grown their practice. But, try not to neglect the business aspects of your private practice in favor of doing the clinical work. This is something that can happen because we know how to do the clinical work. We've been trained in it. There's no skill gap there. We know what we're doing and we enjoy it, right? It feels really, really good. And in fact, if we had it our way, we would be doing nothing really on the business, and it would be all, working with our beautiful clients. But if you neglect the business aspects of private practice, the business just won't be sustainable. The other thing that can happen is the opposite. And sometimes we get so caught up in learning about how to run the business side of private practice, we find that we just have natural affinity for it, or it's something we really enjoy and things like that. You can lose touch with your clinical skills because you're now putting a lot of your attention to working on the business. So really making sure that you're balancing your attention here. And then the last thing to just be aware of too is not delegating things as the practice grows. So this comes into things like the masculine and the feminine, and the shadow masculine and the shadow feminine. Obviously, that's a whole other podcast topic. But just to sum up today, it's just going to be really important for you to have somebody that you can check in with, maybe even if you just check in with somebody quarterly, so that you can do a regular assessment of your business. I would actually recommend, for those of you who are just starting up and you're in your first 12 months, maybe have a monthly check-in with somebody like myself, like a private practice specialist who understands about all of these things, so that they can just check that you're right where you need to be, that you're on track, that we're not veering off course. It's really important, especially if you're somebody who does struggle with managing yourself and managing your time, and you have an idea of what you want to get done in the week or the day, but you end up going down rabbit holes. If you can put in place a structure for yourself of support with something like, even if it's just a monthly check-in for half an hour, that's going to help keep you accountable. It's going to give you direction. I think one of the things that happens is we make the leap from working for somebody else, where we've got a position description, we have Monday morning meetings, we have the Wednesday afternoon check-ins and catch-ups, we have the group supervision on Friday. We're constantly getting told what's expected of us. So we don't have to think. Right? You're just told you're seeing clients from 9 till 12, then you're on lunch from 12 till 1, then you're in supervision from 1 till 2, then you've got a client from 2 till 3, and then you're out for the day, right? You don't have to think. All the thinking is done for you when you work for somebody else or you work for a group practice. But when you come and work for your own, suddenly nobody's doing the thinking for you. And if you're untrained in how to run a private practice, you're not going to know what to do. And so you're going to be thinking you've got to do everything. You'll be wearing all of the hats, doing all of the things. And it's really going to make you feel like you're on the brink of burnout potentially, because although you're exhausting yourself, nothing's really changing, nothing's really moving. So it's very important that you have your own structure in place for regular check-ins and assessments of the business. And also just make sure too that you find the right balance between what's going to create sustainable growth for the practice at a pace you're really comfortable with, as well as be really personally satisfying and fulfilling. Okay, so for me, I tweaked and tinkered with and changed my diary, for example, for the longest time. And it was only the last 4 or 5 years that I changed it. And now my diary aligns with my energy. So I'll only do client work or group work in the mornings, and then I'll leave the afternoons free. So I only work 2 or 3 mornings a week. The rest of my time is empty on my calendar, apart from any tasks that I put in for things that I want to do, like maybe record this podcast, or I'm currently filming and posting a video a day for 90 days on my Facebook business page. So that is in my diary as a little task. So I've got things like that, but essentially the, in air quotes, important work, which is my work with my groups and my one-to-one clients, that's done usually on a Monday and Tuesday morning between 9 and 12. That's it, all done. And then the rest is working on the business. But you got to find your sweet spot, okay? I just, for the longest time, I used to work from 8 till 8, and I sustained that. But then after a while with COVID and working from home, my body became out of condition. My brain became out of condition. Things started feeling heavier and harder and more of a slog. And so that's why I changed things so it could be more fulfilling for me. And I had time that I wanted to work on the diary and have the lifestyle that I've been working for, because your business has to give you something, right? You don't work for it. Your business works for you. What needs to shift in your business in order for you to have more time to look after your dog or your mum or your children or your nieces and nephews, or go on your next trip to Bali, right? So I want you to, this is some homework for you. I really just want to encourage you to assess how you're currently spending your time, how you're currently allocating the time in your business. Think about those stages of private practice that I shared with you today. Where do you identify? Where are you sitting at the moment? What's the next stage? And where's the gap in terms of your knowledge from where you are now to that next stage? What skills and information are you needing to learn so that you can make that transition into the next stage successfully? Maybe you want to also, I'd love to invite you to perhaps set some goals for adjusting the ratio of your time working on and in the business as well, based on the figures that I've shared with you today. So I hope this was a really helpful, interesting episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will speak with you on the Saturday episode. We will actually be on a road trip, you and I. We're going up to Daylesford. And yes, I'm looking forward to recording while we're on the road. So who knows what's going to come through. I know, I'm so excited. If you have any requests, let me know. And the other thing too is, of course, the doors to the Diploma Counsellor Society are open at the moment and they close on Friday. So you've got like about 48 hours to get in if that's something that you would be interested in doing. I will put a link to the show notes below for anybody who's interested in checking it out and learning more. Otherwise, I'll see you on Saturday. Bye for now.
On Wednesday morning, you know what to do. Tune into the podcast just for a few. I'll be your guide with tips for your trade. Business success, that's what we'll create. They call it private practice, a world of its own, where entrepreneurs thrive and dreams are grown. From marketing strategies to financial know-how, I'll share the secrets, come on and take a bow. Welcome to the Private Practice Podcast, where I'll help you thrive and we'll have a blast. Tune in every Wednesday and you'll soon see your business success. It starts with me.